Hi guys, this is Scribbly again with another pen review, and today we're going to have a look at a sailor pen. The sailor pen we're looking at today is the ProGear Black Rhodium Trim Fountain Pen with a 21 karat gold nib in fine. This is the pen that we're talking about. Now I have already reviewed a Sailor ProGear, the regular size ProGear. There's also a ProGear Slim, which is a little bit slimmer and also a little bit shorter. And the ProGear that I have already reviewed, you can find the review on scribbly.org, my website, and on YouTube as well. If you search for Scribbly on YouTube, on my YouTube channel. And the one that I had reviewed was the one with the gold trim, but I also wanted to have a look at the one with the silver trim because I'm a rhodium trim, because I'm more of a rhodium trim person. And then also the other ProGear that I had was an extra fine. And I have to say that the extra fine nib of the golden ProGear or the gold trim ProGear, that was a tad too fine for me. I'm really a fan of fine nibs, but the extra fine ProGear, that was a tad too fine for me actually. So that may be just as a little pre-talk. Now I got that sailor here from La Couronne du Comte, and they actually have a pretty good price on it. It's like a little bit shy of 300 euros, so it's not exactly a entry-level fountain pen. It's not a cheap fountain pen or inexpensive fountain pen. Certainly not a cheap fountain pen, but it's not an inexpensive fountain pen. But it is also not a very expensive fountain pen, depending on where you're coming from. You know, if your starting point is a Lamy Safari, then this is an expensive fountain pen. But I would say if you look at it in the overall range and perspective of pen prices, it's a pretty good upper mid-tier pen. It ranges somewhere in between a Pelikan M400 and M600, so to speak. Comes in this package here. You take that out. It's like a plastic coated box saying Sailor, has the Sailor anchor logo on it. Then you unpack it. Says Sailor in here. You can take that thing out. There's nothing under there. You get a couple of filling instructions and care guides and stuff like that in here. Came with a converter, of course. It uses the Sailor proprietary ink cartridges or converter. One thing that's interesting in that filling guide here, where's the English side here, is that to my understanding, Sailor nibs, they fill from the front through the breather hole, as you can also see in that picture. So it's enough if you submerge the focus camera, if you submerge the nib until just a little bit below or above the breather hole, below the ink level, or yeah, you know what I mean. So that's how to fill it. You don't need to submerge the whole pen and section into ink for the pen to fill, which is pretty nice because like that you don't get ink on the section, you don't get in the inky fingers, you don't need to wipe the section off and all that. So the pen itself has a pretty classic pen design, a capped off cigar, so to speak. Here I have a Platinum Century 3776. This is the black diamond, and you see it's pretty much, you know, the design of a ProGear and then just chopped off ends. So these are the two, so to speak, classy fountain pen designs out there, the cigar and the chopped off cigar. This one here is black, of course, the ProGear. The black with silver trim or rhodium trim or gold trim are the two standard versions. And then there's tons of special versions, the Earth, the ProGear Earth, which is a little bit brownish, and blue ones and yellow ones and all that. So they're available in a number of colors. This one, as said here, is the black one. It's a glossy, shiny, nice black resin. Picks up fingerprints a little bit, but it's actually not all that bad. Has this really nice, beautiful Sailor anchor logo here at the top of the cap that sticks out just a little bit. I don't know if you can really see that. The camera focuses. Yes, now you should be able to see that it sticks out a little bit. I really love that finial, that logo. This Sailor logo is one of my favorite, or the Sailor finial on the ProGears is one of my favorite fountain pen finials. Has a silver ring here at the top of the cap where the clip attaches to, and then the clip comes out like that. Has like this sort of typical Sailor, this typical Sailor clip with these like, looks like a staircase or something like that, like 3 stairs. Then it has a double ring band here, says Sailor Japan, founded 1911. And then you just have the barrel there that tapers down a little bit towards that side, and then you have another silver ring here. Clip is not tight, not loose, perfectly usable clip. I really like using that clip. It's a really nice, it's a shorter pen overall. It's a thicker pen, which is nice because it's nice and girthy, chunky, beefy to hold, but it's a little bit a shorter pen, which is nice because it makes it a perfect short pocket pen if not all of your shirt pockets are very deep. Has a inner cap that you can't exactly see here right now, but it's there. That prevents the nib from drying out, does a very good job in doing so. And then of course the star of the show, this really, really beautiful 21 karat gold two-tone rhodium plated gold nib that has some scroll work on here, the breather hole through which the pen feeds, as I've already said, says 1911, the anchor logo on there, 21 karat. Then can't really read that, 875 probably for the gold content, and says Sailor down here. A very nice large feed. I always really enjoy these Sailor nibs and Sailor feeds. I think they somehow look like the head of a cobra. I don't know why, but like that's just what I find them reminiscent of. And then you find the size designation of the Sailor nibs here at the side. That is HF for hard fine. As said, this is a fine nib, and please be aware it's a Japanese nib. Japanese nibs always tend to run on the finer side of things. So this Japanese fine, as said, now that is really my sweet spot of nib. The extra fine, as said, was too fine for me, or is too fine for me. I'm going to do a comparison to some other fine and extra fine European nibs in a bit, but please be aware of the fact a Japanese fine will be comparable to European extra fine, but probably even finer than a European extra fine. Then you have a very nice section here. As said, it's a beefy, chunky section. I have larger hands, so you see when I hold the pen in my hands, it is a short pen. It works perfectly well for me like this. This is a really good size because most importantly, it's a nice beefy pen. Is really, really, really comfortable to hold. I really like that. Those threads here are not sharp at all. There's another silver ring here, by the way. You can really hold the pen up here if you like. I tend to hold the pen down here, but there's no problem. If you like to hold your pen a little bit higher, you can really do that. You feel the threads, but as said, they are not sharp. And then the section down here flares out just a wee little bit. So let's open the pen. Let's see if that, I have slightly wet hands now. I need to take pen opens up like this. There is metal threads on here on which the barrel screws onto. The barrel is just resin. There are no metal threads inside. And then you have the Sailor converter that came with the pen, that is supplied with the pen. As said, it's a proprietary converter. They have like slightly wider opening holes, such as for instance the Pilot and the Platinum converters and cartridges as well. They're of course not compatible to each other, Pilot, Platinum and Sailor, but yeah, it's a proprietary format, so you need a Sailor converter or Sailor cartridges, and that pen here is inked with Standardkraft Kohlenschwarz or coal black in English. And then you have a small rubber O-ring here that makes sure that when you screw the section back onto the barrel, it does actually really sit nice and tight. You can post the pen, and it does post very securely. It also posts fairly deep. You see that? And I have to say, I find the pen, I'm normally not one that posts pens, but I do find the ProGear almost a bit more balanced and comfortable when posted. I enjoy writing that pen primarily posted. For short notes or for shorter notebook entries or something like that, I do write the pen unposted. As said, very balanced, very comfortable, really nice like that. But when I know it's going to be a longer writing session, I do certainly post the pen. So if you like to write your pens posted, that pen here is really predestined to write posted because it is just like super comfortable. A really, really nicely balanced pen. Let's do a size comparison to my standard reference pen, the Lamy Safari, and you already see what I meant when I said that pen is definitely a shorter pen. I mean, the Lamy Safari is not a small pen either, but the ProGear is a shorter pen, as you can see here. And I also do have a Pelikan M400 here that I want to use for a nib width comparison in a minute, but I will also throw that in here for size comparison just because I think it's useful. So you see the M400 is a tad longer, but you also see that the section excuse me, of the M400 is quite a bit narrower than the section of the ProGear. And now let's cap them back so that you also see another size comparison with the M400 in the picture that we have not had in the picture a minute ago. Let's do it like this. Yeah, you see, like capped, they're about the same size, but uncapped, the M400 is a little bit longer. All right then, towards the end of the review, as always, we are going to do a writing sample. And of course, the Sailor nibs are said to be some of the most spectacular or best nibs out there. And they are really, really well-tuned, excellent nibs. That nib is tuned a little bit onto the weather side, factory, nothing special made for me or something like that. Is a 21 karat gold nib. I think Sailor to date is the only manufacturer that does 21 karat gold nibs. Now I dried up a little bit in the course of the review. The special thing about Sailor nibs is they are pretty stiff. Some find them bouncy. I don't know. I don't find them bouncy at all. I don't find them stiff as a nail, but I enjoy that because it actually gives you a really nice consistent line width. Right? I mean, pilot nibs tend to be a little bit bouncy, springy, so the pilot gold nibs can be hard to write with because they will actually give you a wee bit of line variation, and for some people that is a little bit disturbing and difficult to write with. Not so those Sailor nibs. They're always like, that is precision machining. I mean, like each line that it lays down is just exactly the same than the other. Of course, if you exert a little bit pressure, you do get some line variation, but like when writing with the pen, I don't find it to be bouncy. I find it stiff as a nail, but I find it super comfortable, I gotta say. And what's also special about those nibs is that they have those, you hear that? They have a really nice pencilish feeling to the page. Like when the nib glides across the page, it's a really nice pencilish feedback. Feels a bit like writing with a pencil. Super pleasant. So let's do a small writing sample here. This is the Sailor ProGear with a fine nib. Now this is slightly more absorbent paper, and Standard Graph Coal Black is not the wettest of inks, so that's why you don't see a lot of wetness here. But if you would use an Iroshizuku ink or a wetter Sailor ink or something like that, you would see that this is actually a slightly wetter tuned nib. It's definitely not a dry nib. It's rather on the wet side. And you already see that here, like the ink is a bit dry. It's Standard Graph Coal Black is not really a wet ink. So here we have the Sailor nib, and zoom out just a little bit to compare that Sailor ProGear fine here to a couple of other nibs, just to give you an idea on how fine this fine actually really is. So what I have here is a Pelikan M400 with a gold nib as well, and this gold nib here, well, the camera focuses on that one so you can't really see it. This is an extra fine, and I write with no pressure whatsoever, and you see that that Japanese fine is finer than this Pelikan extra fine here. And then I have a Namisu Nova Ebonite here that is equipped with an extra fine Bock steel nib that is also completely without pressure. So this fine, extra fine Bock steel nib here is also considerably wider than the fine ProGear. And then last but not least, I got a custom 750 in lately that I bought that comes with a, also doesn't focus, fine gold nib, and that is rather comparable to this Japanese fine up here, right? So you see, the Japanese fine is definitely a fine nib, and it's definitely a Japanese fine comparable to another Japanese fine. And the Pilot was even a tad finer, but the Pelikan M400 extra fine, that Bock steel extra fine, those nibs are all slightly wider than that ProGear nib here was. So I hope that review was useful to you. I enjoy that pen a lot. If you're looking for a nice mid-tire fountain pen with a super smooth, nice writing nib, great size, then the Sailor here might just be for you. And I'll thank you for watching the review, and I'll see you at the next review.